Can a computer simulate brain activity? Imagine sitting in front of a computer. You ask it to solve a problem. It calculates numbers, recognizes your voice, identifies your face, and even writes a story. Now imagine something much harder. What if we asked a computer to simulate the human brain? Not simply to copy what the brain does, but to recreate its activity. Every electrical signal, every connection between neurons, every chemical interaction, every moment of information processing. Could a computer one day simulate a human brain? And if it does, would that computer understand? Or would it simply be performing an extremely complicated calculation? Today, we're going to explore one of the biggest questions at the intersection of neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and computer science. Can a computer simulate brain activity? Let us start with the brain itself. The human brain contains around 86 billion neurons. Each neuron connects with many other neurons, creating an enormous network of connections. These neurons communicate using electrical and chemical signals. When you see a red apple, for example, your brain does not receive a simple message saying, "This is an apple." Instead, millions of neurons become active. Some process color, some process shape, some process movement, some connect the image with memories. Others help you decide whether you want to eat it. All of this happens incredibly quickly. Your brain is constantly processing information. And this creates our first problem. How do we simulate something so complex? One approach is to build a computer model of the brain. Scientists create mathematical models that represent neurons and their connections. A simplified artificial neuron might receive signals from other neurons. It processes those signals. Then it sends a new signal to other neurons. This sounds simple, but the human brain contains billions of neurons and trillions of connections. So the number of calculations becomes enormous. And there is another problem. The brain is not simply a collection of neurons. Neurons communicate through complex biological processes. There are different types of neurons, different chemicals, different connection strengths, different patterns of electrical activity. The brain also changes over time. When you learn something new, connections between neurons change. This ability is called neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly adapting. So, a realistic brain simulation would need to reproduce not only the structure of the brain, but also its changing activity. This raises an important question. Do we need to simulate every single neuron? Maybe not. Think about weather. A weather scientist does not need to track every molecule of air individually to predict a storm. Instead, computers use models that describe large-scale patterns. The same idea might work for the brain. Instead of simulating every biological detail, scientists might focus on the patterns that matter. This is where artificial intelligence becomes interesting. Modern AI systems are inspired, at least partly, by the brain. Artificial neural networks contain artificial neurons connected together. These networks learn patterns from data. But there is a huge difference between an AI neural network and the human brain. An AI model might contain millions or billions of parameters. The human brain contains an extraordinary biological network with billions of neurons and trillions of connections. And the brain does not learn in exactly the same way as today's AI systems. So an AI system is not a digital brain. It is a mathematical system inspired by some ideas from neuroscience. But computer technology is advancing quickly. Computers are becoming faster. Specialized hardware is becoming more efficient. Scientists are collecting more data about the brain. And researchers are developing increasingly detailed brain simulations. This leads to another question. If we eventually build a sufficiently accurate simulation of a human brain, what would happen? Would the simulation think? Would it have memories? Would it experience emotions? Would it be conscious? This is where science meets philosophy. A simulation of a brain is not automatically a conscious brain. Consider a flight simulator. A flight simulator can reproduce the mathematics of an airplane. It can show what happens when you change altitude or speed. But the simulator does not actually fly through the sky. It represents flight. The same question applies to the brain. If a computer simulates every process involved in thinking, is it thinking? Scientists do not yet have a complete answer. We still do not fully understand how consciousness emerges from brain activity. We know a great deal about neurons. We know how many brain regions work. We understand many processes involved in perception, memory, movement, and learning. But we still do not have a complete scientific explanation for subjective experience. Why does seeing a color feel like something? Why does pain feel like something? Why do you experience the world from your own perspective? These questions remain open. And this is why brain simulation is not only a technological challenge. It is also a scientific challenge. Before we perfectly simulate the brain, we need to understand what we are trying to simulate. There is another important possibility. A brain simulation might not need to reproduce every detail of a real human brain. It might only need to reproduce the important patterns of activity. For example, researchers might simulate how the brain processes language, or how it recognizes faces, or how it forms memories, or how it controls movement. This approach could help scientists understand diseases and develop new treatments. Imagine a virtual model of a patient's brain. Researchers could test different treatments on the model before testing them in the real world. They could study how diseases change brain activity. They could explore how different regions communicate. They could investigate disorders that are difficult to study directly. Brain simulation could therefore become an important tool for medicine. But there is also a deeper possibility. If we eventually understand the brain well enough to simulate it, we might gain a better understanding of ourselves. We might learn why humans learn, why we remember, why we dream, why emotions influence our decisions, and perhaps, one day, why consciousness exists. But we should be careful. A more powerful computer does not automatically give us a complete understanding of the brain. The challenge is not only computational power, it is knowledge. We need better measurements, better models, better neuroscience, better theories of consciousness, and better ways to connect all of these fields. So, can a computer simulate brain activity? The answer is already yes, in limited ways. Computers are already used to model neurons, brain regions, and patterns of neural activity. But can we simulate an entire human brain with all its complexity? Not yet. And can we create a simulation that has human-like consciousness? We do not know. Perhaps the most interesting part of this question is not whether computers will eventually simulate the brain. It is what we will learn while trying to do it. Because when we try to reproduce the brain, we are forced to understand it. And when we try to understand the brain, we are forced to ask one of the oldest questions in science. What makes us who we are? Maybe the future of brain simulation will not simply give us smarter computers. Maybe it will give us a deeper understanding of ourselves. Thank you.